starting to sense that South African general Johannesburg in particular is getting back on its feet after some challenging years, then the broader Rosebank Mall is a good place to come to. It might not be the aesthetic of some of your Cape Town eateries, but there's a real buzz, a real excitement, a real energy to this stretch of not just retail, but some pretty cool restaurants as well. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows, and welcome to Mama Samba, which sits alongside a Proud Mary and Fugazi as a trio of restaurants, all very different and all headlined by one particular sommelier. And it's that sommelier, Katlego Mathobela, I'm going to be catching up with a little later on in the show. Now, she's got something of a challenge here because Mama Samba's cuisine takes its cue from South America, but heads off in all sorts of different directions, and the combination makes for an exotic menu that tells the sommelier, well, you might have your work cut out for you getting exactly the right wines for the food that we have. If anybody can get that just right, it is Kat, and I'm fascinated to see what food she gives me and what wine she pairs with it over the course of my visit today. We'll also today be going to somewhere Kat used to be part of, Saint, where the launch of the Luxurious Marble Circus took place a few weeks ago. It's a huge event happening in October, and we'll find out more about it a little later on in the show. Right now, though, there's been an equally big show, the Investec Trophy Wine Show. The results of that with Michael Fridjhon came out again just a couple of weeks ago. There were plenty of surprises. Michael Fridjhon himself explains what did well, what didn't, and how the showcase for this year spoke to the state of South African wine. So this is the headquarters of arguably the single most influential person in South African wine. And when I come to visit Michael Fridjhon, it's usually because he's got some obscenely expensive bottle of 300-year-old dessert wine or very hard to find Bordeaux or Burgundy that he's decided to kindly share with me. So why then, if I'm at the home of such an important person in the wine industry, am I sitting with a bottle of what's normally found on the supermarket, not the top shelf, Nederburg Shiraz from the Winemakers series? Well, the reason, the Wine Masters series, the reason is that it's a wine that's done rather well and has hit the media in a very big way over the last couple of weeks because, Michael Fridjhon, this wine has come out as absolute tops in the Investec Trophy Wine Show.
I mean, it was a surprise to everybody, to say the least. But when you consider just how that passes through a number of hoops to get there, it has to have won a gold medal at the Shiraz panel. Then goes through to the trophy judging, which involves all the judges, local and international, and they then have to score it in terms of best in class, that wins the Shiraz trophy. From then, it still has to be judged the best red wine of show in order to win the trophy that it's won. So what it does is tells us that you don't have to pay a lot of money to get a superb bottle of wine. And it's a real reminder to everybody that you can make fine wine at a reasonable price and in relatively large volume.
Now, this put a smile on my face for two reasons. One is I know a lot of people who, at a sighted tasting, will sneer, oh, I'm not drinking Nederburg, that's supermarket stuff, I want expensive and bespoke stuff made by men with beards and checked shirts and wouldn't possibly drink this. And then you give them wine on a blind tasting, and as happened with you guys, it came out really well. But it also shows, I suppose, a blue-collar element to the world of judging. You have a fine wine space. You've got some very impressive judges. This is not just a group of your mates who've had a few too many drinks and decided this is the one they're going to pick. It's a rigorous process, and I think it's a really nice endorsement of South African wine in a space that wouldn't often get that sort of endorsement.
I completely agree. And, you know, the industry's been talking for a long time about scalability. We think that until we can produce quality wine in reasonable volume, we're never going to be able to compete against New Zealand or Australia or whatever. And sitting on our doorstep, we have exactly that. We have more Shiraz plantings in this country than we have Merlot plantings. We have enough fruit for the winemaking team at Nederburg to produce a wine like this in a significant quantity. And that tells us that we can go out there and compete, providing we market ourselves properly.
Last question then, is there on the horizon, while we speak about Nederburg, the chance that much spoken of, in fact I think I've heard you speak about it, creating a Penfolds of South Africa in the way that Australia have done, where you've got somebody who produces a lot of wine but at both ends of the spectrum. Could Nederburg be the answer to that challenge?
They could be the answer, but they have to accept the mantle. So that's a question that the new owners, Heineken Beverages, are going to have to make a call for themselves. But it's very clear that what they have in their cellars is the kind of wine that could really put South African wine on the international map at a level that we haven't thought of. We keep looking at the kind of very popular amongst the wine journos, those geeky styles of wine. Here we've got a wine that people can drink and available in real quantity.
Let's talk about the people who've decided this. Obviously, you have to have the final say, I'm sure, being the Grand Master of this particular space. But you've got some really impressive wine judges who work with you. Who was on your panel this year, and what was the general sense of the quality of entry?
I just have to say that I don't have that final say unless there's a tie break required. So really this is the result of the judges. We have 3 international judges. Every year we have 6 local judges, and the 3 internationals this year included Lisa Perotti-Brown, who edited The Wine Advocate for Robert Parker and now runs The Wine Independent. But we also had Funky Walker, who's an MW from China, and Claire Blackler, who's an MW from the UK. So those 3 internationals were on our panels. One of them would have been on the Shiraz panel that made that call, and all 3 of them would have been at the trophy judging in order to get that wine to best red wine of show status.
Which is an extraordinary accolade to get, given the process to get there. And it's processed in terms of best red wine of not just the Shiraz, but so many others. In that red selection, what else stood out, and what was your feeling of where red wine was this year?
It was a really decent red wine lineup all round. So we often have red wines where there's 1 or 2 strong classes, a strong Cabernet class, strong Bordeaux blend class, and then we scrape around a bit to say, well, where are all the other red wines? This year we had a really good Pinotage, also produced, I think, in reasonable volume by Durbanville Hills. We had a Cabernet trophy winner from Kleiner Zolzer, not the family selection, but in fact the vineyard selection, which is once again available in slightly more volume than one would otherwise expect. On the other hand, the best Bordeaux blend was the Zevenwacht-Z, which I think also won last year. Certainly, it's a wine that's not available in anything like that same volume. So there was a spread across most of the categories, sadly not a Merlot yet again, but a strong red wine showing to match the always strong white wine showing that we see at the Trophy Wine Show.
Well, let's have a look at that white wine showing, and I know it's one you charge into with great relish because the results over the last few years have been splendid. I've chatted to a number of your fellow judges, the international ones over the last year or two, and it's always been a recollection that's made them smile as they look back on the white wine judging. What stood out this year?
Well, so the usual. We have great Chenin Blanc. We probably could have done with a couple more gold medals, but we didn't see them. The winner was the KWV, the Mentors Chenin Blanc, which is a really smart wine. The winning Chardonnay was the De La Graaf Banhoek Reserve, which for those who think that the way to get a medal at the Trophy Wine Show is to come in with something cheap, that will reverse it for everybody. Although yet again, it wasn't the most expensive of the De La Graaf cuvées. It's still a pretty hefty price. It's a very fine wine. It also won the Vinalog trophy for the best premium white, in fact the best premium wine of the show, and it also won the International Judges Trophy as the best wine in that entire lineup.
So another strong list of contenders. What about the other spaces? Bubbles, rosé, dessert wines. What were the shining lights there?
So once again, 2 interesting things with Bubbles. The Pomgrat's Blanc de Blanc won the trophy for the best Cup Classique, but the Scintilla produced at J.C. Leroux won the best museum class. So that cellar is producing some pretty smart Cup Classiques. And Funky Walker, who was the overseas judge at that class, said that it really is for her one of the most exciting classes at the show, and that we seem as a country to have moved away from the shadow of champagne to a style which is definitively South African. So that was very interesting, and I think very encouraging. It's an industry which has grown in leaps and bounds in the last 10 years and has definitely come into its own.
You've got this collection of international judges. You've also got a lot of local judges. Many of them you've had a hand in guiding through your own judging competitions. How exciting is that for you when you see not just great wines coming through, but also great young South Africans getting to that stage where they can judge this sort of competition?
Listen, I think we've seen that pretty much for the last 10 years. The Wine Judging Academy has been running since 2007. And I guess for the last 5 to 10 years, we've had a kind of wealth of talent to draw on. So I kind of every year I try to rotate the judges. It's never a reflection on the judge who may not get a gig that year. We just have so many good judges to call upon. I find myself looking through some of the old Trophy Wine Show judging panels. And in the early days of the show, we were looking to winemakers. We were looking everywhere for people who would have the experience and expertise required. Now the opposite is true. We have a real richness of talent, which in fact serves all the competitions in the country. We don't just train judges for the Trophy Wine Show. We train them for any and every panel where people want wine expertise to produce a result that you can stand behind.
He also had some great support from a very excited sponsor, and that's not just because they get to drink some of the really cool wine, but they seem to genuinely believe in this space. A word on how valuable that is, and to have big brands in South Africa supporting the wine industry in this way.
Well, I have to say that Investec has been a wonderful sponsor. They've put themselves behind the brand. They understand that what we do, in a sense, is what good financial managers do, which is we seek out talent where other people don't find it and produce things which are out of the ordinary.
Beautifully put. I want to ask you in closing about the sense of this year as a whole. When you look at your 2024 judging, what do you take away as Michael Fridjhon on this as a portal into the health of South African wine?
Okay, so firstly, this was a year in which a lot of popularly priced wines did very well. So that message of the Nederburg Shiraz is not a one-off. You see it pretty much across the board. Most of the wines are well priced, and that's a message for consumers that you don't have to use price as a proxy for quality. You can trust your palate, and you can trust some of the bigger brands that are out there. That's a really important message for South African wine, because certainly for the last 10 or 15 years, the industry has assumed that it's the tiny quantities of wine produced by our rockstar winemakers that is the only way we can go into international markets. And what is very clear to me is that the wine industry, in a much bigger sense, has really come of age, and the spread of medals and trophies across red and white wine and the range of pricing shows that we are delivering fabulous wine to South African consumers at prices that I fear at one level may be unrepeatable, because at 115 Rand a bottle, I'm not sure the grower earned enough money to replace that vineyard. We now need to look very seriously at the health of the industry, at the kind of level of shrinking vineyards, and the need to make sure that the people who grow our grapes are still in business in 10 and 20 years' time.
That is one message I hope the industry does take. And the one I hope that you take is probably the only criticism that has come through repeatedly about this show of yours, and that's that there isn't a box wine section, and I haven't judged yet, and I think those two could intersect quite nicely, and I think that's a space you really could use me in.
I'll take that as a word of advice that probably won't last longer than the stocks of the Nederburg on the shelves of the supermarkets.
Well, they are flying off, and with good reason. When Michael Fridjhon and his team at the Investec Trophy Wine Show give a bottle of Nederburg Shiraz at just 115 Rand or thereabouts, the best red on show, you know you've got a hell of a bargain, and one that's going to be flying off the shelves, and rightly so. Looking up a couple of weeks' time, we'll have Michael and some of the winemakers back, including the wonderful Isel van Blurk from the Mentors at KWV, as we celebrate another edition of a wine show that pays tribute to a wonderful array of South African wine, and as is the case this year, often turns up some wonderful surprises. Oh, that Nederburg Shiraz has been talked about a great deal since the results came out at the Investec Trophy Wine Show. Lots of opinions, and that in itself I think is pretty good, because we want people talking about wine. But I also quite like the fact that a pretty blue-collar example from an estate that's got a really strong history of making red wine for many, many years now has come out on top with something that even Nederburg will tell you is not absolutely top of their list, but a very rewarding buy if you can still get some. Guys at Norman Goodfellows tell me it is selling rather quickly, and that is No surprise. All right, from a bottle of red that's won a great award to a bottle of white sitting in front of me alongside the food of Mama Samba. Now, I've been to Brazil once. It was the Glorious Awards in Rio going back 11 years or so. The food I ate there was a lot of meat. There was quite a lot of richness to the food. I had one glass of Brazilian wine. Got out of intensive care a week later. Haven't tried it since. But generally, there was a touch of the exotic. And I kind of feel that that's what will filter through to Mama Samba. It's got this really festive, really almost tropical feel to it in terms of the setting and the aesthetic. How does that affect, first of all, the menu and then the wine list? Well, the person to ask is acclaimed, recognised, celebrated sommelier and great friend of the show, Katlego Mathobela. Kat, lovely to have you back on the show. Tell me about Mama Samba, because last time we caught up with you was across the road at Proud Mary. Very different feel, very different menu, very different wine list. The wine's going to come in a second. First and foremost, the food. What is the Mama Samba menu? What are you trying to say with your kitchen here?
So, Mama Samba, like you said, it's very lovely, very festive. So, what we're going here for is sushi, tacos, all of that southern inspired kind of flavors. So, what you have in front of you is the maki. And I went nice and simple because, as you know, it's in the afternoon. So, it's avocado and cucumber with a little bit of soy pulse right on top. You obviously have your pickled ginger and your sesame soy in the middle as well. And so the idea is just to give you a little bit of a more of a fresher feel, but obviously towards the night we have more of your meatier dishes. But it's just very vibrant and attractive.
I'm interested in how you then make the wine list work, because this looks terrific, and I've had a look at the broader menu, and there is quite a different array of styles of food, and you've said as much now. Most of the people I know who've come to Mama Samba, one of the first things they say, oh, great cocktails, love their cocktails. Oh, we had fantastic cocktails. This is the kind of thing that makes a sommelier burst into tears and go and hide in a dark corner because we want people drinking wine. How do you take this sprawling menu and you've got 8 people at a table eating all sorts of different things, go, ha, I have the universal bottle of wine for you, and get them drinking wine instead of cocktails?
That is a hard play because we make fantastic cocktails. Even myself, I do dabble in cocktails sometimes. However, when it comes to our wine, the idea is to pair with all of the dishes. So there is a bit of soy, a bit of sweetness, a bit of chili that goes into the southern cuisine, to pardon. And with all of the wines that we have here, so they do have that slight perception of sweetness to pair with the soy, to pair with the chili, and all of those umami flavors that comes with the cuisine itself. So we have for you the Bouchard Blanc de Mer right in front of us, the 2024 from Himmel and Ada.
I suspect this is going to be a wine that many people haven't come across, because the moment we see Bouchard Finlayson, oh, Himmel and Ada, it must be Chardonnay or Pinot Noir, this is a white wine, clearly it's Chardonnay, and then we discover it's not.
Well, one, it fits the theme, green. But no, secondly, it is a lovely blend of Riesling, Viognier, and Chardonnay. So you do get the nice bits of each cultivar. And because of that, the foreignness from the Viognier, the slight perception of sweetness from the Riesling, and you have the body from the Chardonnay. And that just incorporates lovely with the cuisine that we serve here.
So I know that you and I share a love of white blends, and I think we both feel that it's some of the best wine South Africa makes, bringing together. But this particular combination is unusual. It's not something we see a lot of. So you've obviously chosen this very specifically for the dish that I'm about to climb into.
No, for everything. Come to Mama Samba and eat everything.
And wash it down. All right. Well, let me try the food first of all.
Let's do it.
It looks really pretty. The aesthetic is fabulous. There we go. All right. Umami, roll on. The umami is certainly there. It's also so fresh with that avocado and cucumber.
And you get the saltiness from the seaweed wrap
You do
outside.
indeed.
And that just gives it that extra saltiness that just pulls through quite nicely. It just brings everything together, I feel.
I love it when chefs revel in simplicity of a dish. So here is something that doesn't have 71 million ingredients. There's not a full deep fried lobster balanced on top of half of a side of freshly imported tuna, sitting on top of a kilogram of rice with caviar. And sometimes we get these big towering pieces of ghastly modern art, especially in sushi, where you feel that chefs probably need a spell in rehab. Here's just something that's really simple, but it does have that freshness, got the umami, got the saltiness from the seaweed. So now let's see how the wine goes. So, Riesling, Viognier, and Chardonnay, unique combination. Does it work?
Don't forget the salinity. That's in it's a lovely high minerality that just comes out. And just my opinion, does sushi justice.
It does indeed. And it's a reminder that there is some Chardonnay in here, of course, but the other two varietals are not ones we immediately think of when we think of the Emelanada. But this has been brought together. Chris Albrecht has done a terrific job here. There's freshness here, salinity. The umami's playing off the wine, and there is that slight viscosity to the wine as well, which is wrapping up the palate and doing this rich justice indeed. It's a really good call. Which I shouldn't be surprised at all, because I know you spend hours doing this, working on dishes, and it's a pretty cool job to have. It's also, I think it's a pretty fun space for you, because you get to jump between these three different restaurants. You've got Proud Mary, very kind of modern cuisine with a wine list to match, and a great wine list. Here it's this South American flair, but the food extends into a whole lot of different spaces. And then you've got some old school Italian next door as well. For you as a sommelier, it must be a really fun challenge, lots of hard work I'm sure, but a fun challenge to embrace all of this different food and find a wine match for each restaurant.
That is very true, keeps me on my toes. The research never stops. And the reality of every customer that walks into each and every store. So the reality of what you are getting, is it good quality, and are you willing to pay the money for it? And that is where I come in and make sure that it's a yes, yes, yes. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going with two yeses, one for the food and one for the wine. I'll give you a third one for the combination. I'm going to take you back now for a bit of nostalgia as we finish this off, and maybe order another 11 plates just for research purposes. Take you back to one of your old haunts, because this is now home, but I first met you when you were running the show at Saint, and it is to Saint where we return for the launch of the Marble Circus. It is an extraordinary event. David Higgs, Gary Kiriakou, Dino Constantino, together with the team from G&G Productions, Greg Walsh, have got something rather special coming up in October. This is how it kicked off. Luxurious indulgence and a great meal with a hell of a party afterwards, it's pretty hard to beat Saint in Johannesburg. But even by Saint's high standards, tonight has gone up a notch, because a brand new event is on the horizon in October. It's the Luxurious Marble Circus, the entire Marble group, headlined by David, Gary and Dino, out in force to look ahead to what promises to be the coolest new event in South Africa this year.
Firstly, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us on this chilly winter evening. We appreciate you all coming out. About a year and a half ago, an idea was born. An idea that seemed quite crazy and out there. I tried to forget about it, put it at the back of my mind, but then Gary's words of wisdom came to mind. D, we always have to be a little crazy. We always have to push the envelope. And that's exactly why we are here today, to announce the birth of a new era in the entertainment and hospitality space in South Africa. Yeah, there's big things. Without giving too much away just yet, as the ringmaster, you'll see, will do that shortly, I want to give a brief backstory on how the project came to life. How do you take the culinary excellence, luxury and hospitality of the 4 Marble Group brands and take them out into the wild? It's no easy task, I can tell you that. We knew right away that we could not pull this off on our own. The sheer magnitude and execution needed some of the best minds in the industry to bring the concept to life. Enter Greg Walsh and the phenomenal G&G team. From the first moment I pitched the idea to Greg, I could tell from the look in his eyes he was dying to sink his teeth into a project of this uniqueness. Even though I had second thoughts afterwards and ghosted him for a few weeks or a few months, Greg was persistent. He saw the potential and knew South Africa needed something special like this. Over the next few months, we began working on a few concepts. We found something that worked, but the secret sauce was still missing. We both knew it. We needed world-class design, branding, and communications. And who better to achieve that than our longtime friends and collaborators at Grid Worldwide. The rowdy bunch. And so the dream team was built. Needless to say, 400 Zoom meetings, 22 WhatsApp groups, actually 23 as of today. Thanks, Marcia. I'm beyond proud of the finished product we're about to formally announce here tonight. Marble Group, G&G, and Grid Worldwide are embarking on a journey to bring a truly spectacular show of food, music, and everything in between to life. The show would not be possible without the trust of the amazing sponsors and partners that are all here today. We are blessed to be working with you all. The work that has gone into this is testament on how collaborative efforts can bring projects to life. A special thank you from my side to my partners Gary and David for believing in the crazy dream from the very start. And of course, Christina from our marble team, I'm not sure where she is, Christina for taking on this massive project with me, even though she's currently 8.5 months pregnant. I could not have done it without you, did I? And with that, we are thrilled to welcome you all to the Luxurious Marble Circus.
Well, the good news is the Luxurious Marble Circus has launched. The bad news is tickets are already selling out rather quickly. So if you haven't got on and got some for that last weekend in October, you better hurry up. It's going to be a rather special affair. David Higgs cooking, people like Zakes Pantwini doing the music, Mercedes-Benz amongst the partners. It's going to be 2 seriously cool days of luxury, indulgence, and fabulous outfits. I'm already working on mine. Might take some inspiration from Mama Samba. I've certainly got the build of the gentleman behind me and a cool exotic touch to my wardrobe. I think that could be a very welcome addition and cast me as a standout when the circus comes to town. It's been great hanging out at Mama Samba. Katlego is always an absolute joy to drink wine with and pair food with, and she does a terrific job across the restaurant group, and she does so here having a great deal of fun. But I suspect 1 or 2 challenges because this menu is so sprawling and so exciting and so interesting, but it is the kind of challenge all great soms do enjoy. So thanks to Kat and the team at Mama Samba. Thanks too to Michael Fridjhon, the Investec Trophy Wine Show. Some surprises this year, but just the kind of surprise I like to see rock the boat on conventional wine thinking and showcase some wines that otherwise we might not have given too much attention to. Thanks for joining us on Dan Really Likes Wine with Norman Goodfellows. We'll see you back again next week. Goodbye.